atheists, agnostics, long-haired weirdos, short-haired weirdos, vandals, hooligans.
The government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government.
Welcome to The Politics Guys, a place for bipartisan, rational, and civil debate on American politics and policy.
Hello, and welcome to the bonus Patreon edition of The Politics Guys. Again, I'm joined by political science professor Justin Holmes from the University of Northern Iowa. And we've got some other, I guess, I don't know, more fun stories, the more freewheeling version you get of us on Patreon. We were tempted, and Justin mentioned this, that I should have teased this originally, that if you don't become a Patreon member, we'll kill this dog. For those of you old enough to remember the National Lampoon magazine cover, or at least seeing or a reference to it. But anyway, so Justin, what's going on, and isn't it about time that our politicians stopped coddling puppies?
Yes, these puppies have been out of control for too long. This is one of those stories. Every so often, I find myself saying, nothing in all of my years of studying political science prepared me for this moment, and this is truly one. So you've probably heard this already, but South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, who's had been seen at least as a contender for the Trump's VP slot, released a new book, or at least has a new book forthcoming, several excerpts of which have raised some eyebrows. One, that she shot a dog who was about a year and a half old that couldn't be trained. Also shot a goat for reasons that are somewhat less clear.
I hadn't heard about the goat, but...
Yeah, I've not. There's so much focus. Dogs got more personality than
yeah.
I guess. So but apparently she got the goat's goat as well, and also has claimed that she stood up to North Korea's Kim Jong-un when in fact she'd never met him, unlike Dennis Rodman. So she's basically, at least on the dog story, has not only defended it but doubled down, including threatening the life of Commander, the problematic ex-White House dog. It didn't have much to say about the Kim Jong-un fabrications, except whoops. So I don't know what to make of this, so I'm just going to throw it to you.
No, and this is what I alluded to, that sometimes, again, you just can't make this stuff up. And here's the weirdest part of this, of course, is that this isn't something that the Oppo research came up with, or stumbled upon, or found, or that there was, some ranch hand leaked this to the media. This was in her autobiography.
Yeah.
Which she also did a books on tape where she read it, which just, the mind boggles, to run that political ad in her voice talking about shooting. I don't know how to, and maybe, the best, first of all, I would say, most polls would tend to indicate that most Americans like dogs, even Americans who maybe don't like dogs that much. Like
even cat people would stick up for dogs here, I think.
Yeah, they're not typically big on shooting them. So I think there's sort of political misstep there. There used to be what's in the legislature we would call what you always wanted to stay away from were dog and cat bills, right? Bills that would affect a whole lot of people on purely sentimental things that they all have some connection to. And yet she seems to have done this. The only rationale I can sort of get as to why you put this in your autobiography is some sort of, it's some sort of like Atticus Finch scene, where he shoots the mad dog. But this isn't exactly it. This was shooting a puppy more or less a puppy in a gravel pit. Or that there's this, there's kind of this Western sort of ethos, right? And almost like that you're strong enough to do the things that have to be done, even when you know what I mean? That sort of thing, that there's maybe this sort of toughness type thing to it, or but it's not again, in like the old Westerns of sort of the cowboy shoots his beloved horse to put it out of its misery kind of thing, or I don't know. It's just weird. And what's even weirder, as you point out, is the doubling down on it, on the, that American politicians really ought to be shooting more dogs.
I shot that dog, I'd do it again, and I'd
exactly,
shoot yours.
yeah. Yeah, I'm tired of us coddling these bad dogs. And it's again just bizarre. I think like she could have, if she'd been asked that question, she could have said, "Listen, this is something you learn when you live on a ranch and a farm in South Dakota, and that life is hard and you have to make hard decisions, and all these, you could have spun it that way. It wouldn't have been great by any means, but it would have been, at least less bizarre. So I don't know. This strikes me again as just one of these. I mean, can't. This even goes beyond the unforced error. That the concern is that in some cases we are, drafting weirdos, and that at some point, again, in any normal political life, this sort of thing comes up before your governor and a potential vice presidential contender, which I don't think she is anymore. But because I think even Trump would draw the line at this, but we'll see.
Wasn't a dog on Fifth Avenue, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I am going to preface this very carefully by saying this is not at all an endorsement of what happened. But, coming from a somewhat more rural area, like I have heard stories of people shooting dogs, and I will say, as somebody that that's completely foreign to. I mean, when I hear those, it's kind of mind-boggling, and I'm kind of aghast. But it is very much in the sense, dog bit kid, we're going to go take care of it. It's is that less civilized than taking the dog to the vet and putting him to sleep? I don't know. I mean, that happens as well. So, I mean, the most generous version of this is, and again, this is not necessarily an endorsement, but the most generous version of this is that, this just didn't seem weird, kind of in her world. And so it's just one of those folksy, authenticity stories. I think where, I've seen a lot of pushback, there's been a market for, talking to Republican dog trainers this week to say bad things about Kristi Noem in the press. But, where a lot of people I think have been aghast is, it's not some wild dog or anything like that. It just seems like kind of a nitwit of a dog. And I think that's,
you're not putting the dog out of its misery. You're putting the dog out of your misery.
Yeah. Well, and even, I mean, certainly I've heard of people, either not people I know, but people who I know, who have, shot a dog.
Run with a lot of dog shooters is what you're saying.
I know more dog shooters. I know of more dog shooters than I'm comfortable with, I guess, now that I say this, but it's always been, dog attacked somebody, kind of thing. It's the idea that, dog isn't a good hunting dog or is untrainable is a whole other thing. I do think there's been a lot of backlash. I'm surprised, actually. I haven't seen really anybody stick up for her, and maybe this is just a bridge too far, but it's a definite unforced error, by any means. And if this ends her, contention as a VP potential candidate, it's going to go down in history, I think, as one of the weirdest ways that a political career has ended. I don't know. Perhaps you can.
And I'm thinking the irony of Nixon resurrected his political career with his speech about a dog, right? About checkers.
Yeah, this is no checkers.
This is the anti-checkers. This is
the antithesis of checkers.
If Nixon were a real man, he just would have shot checkers and been done with it.
Oh my goodness! But yes, he would have. The part where she thought that somebody should shoot Commander.
That's the strange. Like I said, I think you could have
defended,
as you said, listen, this is maybe something that people in the suburbs don't understand about, life on the farm, and and we see life and death every day in a different, I think, like I said, I think you can make that argument. I still think it's not a great argument to make.
I don't either, but I think you could persuade enough people that say, oh, well, I know somebody that had to do that, or gosh, that's tough. But yeah, I'd do it again. Plus, I'd kill the president's dog. It's just, I don't even know what to do with that.
Yeah.
To get maybe slightly more serious, What do you think this does? I mean, she was certainly somebody who has been angling hard for the VP slot. It certainly looks like to an outsider. With her out of the presumably out of the running, what does this do? I've been sort of at a loss for where Trump's headed with his VP pick, and this would have been.
I was never. I don't know that. I mean, to my mind, I don't think she was ever really a top contender, right? I mean, she's was sort of in the mix, and I think the Trump appeal would be, well, she's smoking hot. You know what I mean?
But she has gotten the lip fillers and things. And
yeah.
She also gave him a Mount Rushmore with his face on it. So,
yeah. So
I thought that was a leg up, but maybe not.
So yeah, I don't know that she was ever, I don't know, the person. And I also, again, another sort of, but there's been so many complaints, stories about how Kamala Harris treats her staff. You'd have to think that a vice presidential staff of a vice president of Noem would be even more nervous about upsetting the boss. But no, I mean, the names I keep hearing, which unfortunately, I think, J.D. Vance, which I don't think gets Trump a whole lot, and Tim Scott, which I think does get Trump a whole lot, would be better candidates. But yeah, anyway, it's just strange, and if nothing else, sort of and then look, in fairness, I haven't read the book, and maybe if you read the book, it makes sense or something. But
it seems like if it made sense in the book, her defense would have been better.
Yeah, you would have heard about it by now. The sense that most Americans would get this, right, or would like this or be impressed by it, that's sort of to me the political misjudgment.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think you could credibly play up something like this as, life's tough out on the ranch and you got to make tough choices and that kind of thing. But that doesn't seem to have been what was done at all.
Yeah.
And the idea that just, I don't know. And again, the Kim Jong-un thing is in some extent even weirder, right? Of why would you lie about that? I mean, when something that people could find out
is easily verifiable.
Yeah. And even so, what does it get you, right? I mean, unless it's, I would hope, I mean, saying like, hey, I'd stand up against Kim Jong-un would seem to be sort of most everybody would say that. I mean, I don't know that, unless she, punched him personally, or, what I mean? It's sort of like, right? I mean,
I think the only thing that story potentially gets her, is for governors, one of the challenges running for executive office is that they don't have any foreign policy.
Yeah, it was a little Sarah Palin. I can see Russia from my house.
Right,
which she never actually said. Tina Fey said that.
Tina Fey is Sarah Palin, and we.
But Sarah Palin did say things of listen, I'm closer to Russia than any other government, or something like that. She did.
It was a truthy sound.
It was sort of, I'm the only state that borders Russia or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. But so I can see trying to throw something like that in there to brush up your foreign policy credentials, but. I'm with you. I mean, that's just such an easily verifiable thing, and to think that, I mean, every candidate writes a book, at this point, and I think the only people that read them for the most part, I can't imagine that people were rushing out to buy this book in the first place.
Well, maybe they are now.
Well, I might.
No, there's a goat too. Now I'm even more.
After we finish this, I'll have to see if I can give you some research on the goat, but. Yeah, I think what you have to be wary of is that, look, journalists are they're gonna comb through these things, and really that's about the only audience for this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, the books are essentially a long campaign commercial,
right?
And that's what they're intended to be. And I'm myself, I'm not a fan of the genre for that very reason. But
my partner has read several of them. She's the only person I've ever met that reads these things. Yeah, and so where these get out, I mean, where they can have impact is to the extent that they get filtered through journalists. I think a lot of things that candidates do, I mean, that's really frankly, when they're on, social media a lot of the time too, it's not even so much the primary impact there as, some journalist then uses that as a peg for a story. And, I think that's probably what the hope was initially here too, but for gosh sakes, to think that this book wouldn't be,
I wonder what they'll
scrutinized
grab. I wonder what
vetted.
the peg that they'll seize on in this book will be.
Yeah. And to give two doozies, I don't. You'd think the ghostwriter would have had more sense, at least.
Right. Said, Governor, you're sure you want this in there?
But at which point he probably cashed the check and said, "Well, it's your name on it, not mine." And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd have to say, "Look, you're sure there wasn't some like really sick animal or something that you had to,
this old bull or something."
Yeah, or yeah.
Gosh, weren't you heartbroken?
Was there ever a coyote that attacked? Maybe you could have shot.
Gosh, coyote. That's the dog that this is okay for.
Right. That's what I'm saying. There could have been a whole lot better, version type thing of if you're going to shoot some animal. Anyway, so we've probably
run this into the ground,
beaten a dead dog or a dead goat or whatever into the ground at this point, into the gravel.
We hope you enjoyed this preview of our supporters exclusive midweek show. If you'd like to hear the rest of the episode, we hope you'll consider becoming a supporter. Supporters get ad-free access to all of our shows, membership in our Politics Guys Discord group where you can join in on the conversation, and other benefits at different levels of support. To become a supporter, go to patreon.com/politicsguys. You can also support us through Venmo, we're @politicsguys, or through PayPal. You'll find all of our support links in the show notes as well as at politicsguys.com/support. And if you'd like to get the midweek show, but you're not in a position to become a financial supporter, that's not a problem. Just send me an email at mike@politicsguys.com, and I'll be happy to get that set up for you.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group,